Let's face it, gals, if you're not aware that you're living in the fear room, you can't leave the fear room. Welcome to Sobriety Snippets for Ambitious Women over 40, where we elevate our mindset to trade hangovers for higher consciousness, one powerful snippet at a time. I'm Becca Jacobson, and I love this part of the day. I love this part of the day when it's like the very beginning of a snippet. And I get to say hello to those of you who hang out with me in Snippet Land, and those of you who are new in Snippet Land, and those of you who will come in the future to Snippet Land. Let's face it, I just love Snippet Land. Gals, it wouldn't be Snippet Land without you. So today I want to give you some gratitude. Thank you for being here in my world. I'm so honored. Every time I meet more and more of you, and my heart just opens up and my mind is blown at the beauty of women our age showing up and deciding in advance, you know what? I'm going to make this the best damn chapter of my life, bar nothing. We stop considering ourselves aging or old. Instead, we get juicy, we get energized, and we realize that life is exactly what we decide it's going to be. Now, that sounded like a tall order, I know. But listen, gals, that's what we're doing here in January. We're talking about how we elevate our states. In fact, we're talking about that all the time. That's what we talk about here in Snippet Land. Trading hangovers for higher consciousness. On Monday, we talked about states or moods or levels of consciousness, whatever you want to call them, and I likened them to a gigantic house full of rooms. And the states that we live in are just rooms in a giant mansion. And the giant mansion is life, of course. And we can move from one state to another, or one mood to another, or one level of consciousness to another, by opening the door and leaving that room and going into another room. But how do we do this? It's simple, but not easy. So this month, this is what we're talking about. And today, I want to emphasize the fact that we have to start with awareness. Everything starts with awareness. I mean, come on, we can't change something if we're not aware that we have a problem. And so I left off on Monday by mentioning that it's really hard for us to recognize our own states. Some people live in a state of fear, others in a state of self-pity. We can live in any number of states, and they're not all negative, and we don't just live in one. It's not like you're experiencing fear 24/7, but it might be your default. You might be fearful more often than not, or resentful, or whatever the state is. These are moods, these are levels of consciousness. When we dwell in them for too long, they become us. We become that person that people know, oh, there's her again, the one that's depressed, or the one that's angry, or the one that's fearful. I have a friend that I love dearly, and she lives in a constant state of fear. And no matter how many times we talk about courage and the deadliness of fear, fear is paralyzing. And she agrees every time. I know, I agree, I get it, but she can't. There she is, still stuck in fear. And so how can we start recognizing our states? Because, gals, we have blind spots, massive blind spots. See, here's the bad news. Sometimes we're in these rooms. It could be a fear room. Of course, a room is a metaphor. We know that, right? We could be in a state of fear or a state of anger. And the truth of the matter is, we may never admit it to ourselves, but we kind of like it there, right? We get to have our chip on our shoulder. We get to carry our grudge. We get to be this, look, I've been done wrong. Life did me wrong, and I have a right to be pissed about it. Listen, that gets old very fast. People don't have the energy to put up with it. Now, our family pretty much has to, although they'll eventually start ignoring us, start avoiding us as well. It's going to grate on our friendships. It's not going to last. Relationships are going to be strained at all times if we persist in negative states and refuse to even recognize them. Or worse, recognize them and refuse to move out of them. I have come to the conclusion after almost a decade of friendship with the woman I just mentioned that I realize she enjoys living in fear. She enjoys it. She can do lip service all day long to how bad fear is and what it does to our lives. And I could do 17 snippets on it too. But she will not change because she doesn't want to. And yet, she will never admit that. Thank God she doesn't listen to the snippets. Because I know she'll know who she is. Listen, gals, there are lots of us out there like that. And in fact, one of the beautiful things about starting to grow is you get to recognize your own states, your own old states. When you leave a room, it's easier to look back and go, wow, I used to live in the fear room. I don't live there anymore, but I remember what it was like. And I remember how hesitant I was to open that door and move from the fear room to the courage room. It was hard, but I did it. And you can look back with so much clarity. It's really hard to see with that level of clarity when you're in the room. The room becomes clear when you start to leave it. And so I know that my friend, she just occupies that room, and she probably always will, and that's okay. But for those of you gals here in Snippet Land who don't want to continue living in the same states, the same moods, the same rooms, that's what we're talking about here. And not just January. We talk about this all the time. That's why I say at the beginning of the show that we're changing hangovers for higher consciousness, because we are moving from state to state, getting more and more awake, more and more aware, and more than anything else, gals, more and more happy, more and more free, more and more peaceful. That's the result of moving out of negative rooms, negative states. Happiness is the result. And I know you want that, but don't forget though, I know my girlfriend wants happiness too, but she still won't move out of the fear room. So this is not as easy as it sounds. Simple, but not easy. So why do we have blind spots? It's human nature, gals. Blind spots are part of life. There's nothing complicated about blind spots, the fact that we can't see our own states. It's human nature, gals. That's just the way it is. We don't see it. However, once we open our minds and we go, hey, wait a minute, I want to find out what's going on, then the doors start to open. And this can be very painful. And not only that, but kind of humiliating. You're like, you mean to say I'm that angry? I didn't realize how angry I was. We have to have the courage and the humility to be able to say, all right, I get it. I see it. I'm willing. And that's a whole nother level, isn't it? But let's just start with understanding that we have blind spots. You, my dear, yes, you in the back, you over there in the green, the woman in the blue, you with the blonde hair, you over there wearing that beautiful little hat. All of you have blind spots, and so do I. But as we start awakening, we get to see them more clearly, and we have to have an open heart and a willingness to admit when we are in a state, an unhappy state, an undesirable state. A blind spot is usually a mood or a state we think is just who I am. Oh, well, I'm just anxious. Well, I've always been this way. Or I've been diagnosed this way. That's a big one. Once a person in authority tells us we have a particular state, we generally stay there till we die. And I've done snippets on this before. Diagnoses, I have huge issues with diagnoses. Not because I don't want you getting expert help, not because I don't want you looking after yourself, but because a diagnosis is not a life sentence, and yet we take it that way. Many women come into my world, and I hear this, and I'm hearing it more and more, and I'm telling you, I got to be honest, it just grates right up my spine when I hear this. You ready? I've been diagnosed with adult ADHD. I'm speechless. If someone were to say to me, an expert, a psychiatrist, or a doctor, whoever they are, Becca, you have adult ADHD, I would laugh, and I would absolutely refuse to take on that label. I would just not accept it. I would not enter that room. I would not live in that room, that's for sure. Now, what would I do? The truth of the matter is, if someone said to me, if a doctor said to me, I believe you've got adult ADHD, Becca, I wouldn't just say, you're wrong, you're absolutely wrong. I would do something about it immediately. I would say, oh, really? Okay, well, guess what? I'm about to find out the cure for ADHD because I'm not living in this room. However, not that long ago, even a few short years ago, remember, I only quit drinking in 2018. That's not that many years, and the first couple of years were just a big ugly mess. My growth is only a few years old, but I'm here to tell you that there was a time not that long ago where I would have just accepted it. So I'm not judging you gals. Please remember this. As I said on Monday, I'm just a little bit farther ahead on this journey. That's all. But I want you to be very careful when someone labels you. Ask yourself, are you willing to live in that room for the rest of your life? Just because an expert, a so-called expert, gave you a diagnosis does not mean you have to accept it. Anyway, That's a hardcore snippet. I've done it in the past. Maybe it's time for a reinforcement, but let's move on. We're talking about blind spots. Now, listen, we have to first accept the fact that, okay, I've got blind spots. I don't know what they are, but let me make it my business to find out what I'm not seeing about myself. That takes so much courage. Those are the types of women I want to work with. The type of women who go, I'm really not too sure, but I'm open to change. I'm open to find out how to be happy. I'm open to being free. Help me to see this. That's the only way we can do it. If we sit alone at home and listen to podcasts and read and audiobooks and scroll on social media, our blind spots just get deeper and deeper and deeper. Blind spots are reinforced by the language we use, gals. When you use the words I am, whatever follows those words, you are accepting in your life, you are reinforcing it, you're basically locking the door to that room and deciding to live there, setting up camp in that room. However, try this instead. I'm noticing. Instead of I am angry, what about I'm noticing that I'm angry a lot? That right there will shift it. That immediately changes it from a blind spot to a choice. Listen, other people do see our blind spots before we do, but this isn't a weakness. It's just biology. We are wired to normalize our own patterns. It's okay. We're all like that. Don't worry about it. Just be aware and willing to make some changes. But this is why we need support, not because we're broken or there's anything wrong with us. We just can't see them. The moment you accept a blind spot, you start to move out of it. It's the denial, the blind part that keeps us stuck in it. Well, you can't be blind to something if you're aware of it. So the minute you say, oh, wait a minute, I see it. I walk around in anger a lot, or fear, or self-pity. I see it. That's the moment you're cracking open that door and you can start to leave that room. Eventually, you'll leave it behind forever. But we have to start cracking it open. And we really do need others to help us recognize our blind spots. Not because there's anything wrong with us, but simply because we're too close to ourselves. We need a second objective voice. We simply can't see it. It's just human nature. But get this, gals. The minute you notice a blind spot, you're already moving outside of it. So it's not super hard as long as you accept it. Now, someone could mention a blind spot and we go, no way, that's not me. So, they have to be open, we have to be willing. And not only that, but it's possible to be too hard on ourselves and noticing blind spots that really aren't that big of a deal. Some people go the other direction. They constantly put themselves down and expect the worst from themselves. And meanwhile, others are like, you're not that bad, right? So it's not that simple. It's really helpful just to have someone reflecting what they're seeing, someone we trust, of course. And I want you to keep in mind that if you're trying to hunt down blind spots, if you start going on a witch hunt, you're just going to create self-judgment and you're going to end up in a lack of self-trust. Wondering, am I even doing this right? So please don't start a witch hunt because of this snippet. Blind spots will reveal themselves naturally when we slow down, regulate, observe, and when we're working on ourselves over time with the proper support. They just begin to be revealed and they begin to disappear. It's a beautiful thing. We get better at noticing them, and then we can do something about them consciously. So, my dears, the adventure of life continues. And if you're curious to know how to get some reflection in your life and the support that you want, you can start by making sure you're in Snippet Land and you're getting my weekly Sober Living letter, which I deliver to your inbox every Sunday. The messages that I deliver to inboxes, women love them. They respond, they thank me, they enjoy them. I send good messages. Snippet Land is a very beautiful place to be. So today, if you're not getting any goodies in your inbox from me, today would be a great day to go to the show notes and sign up for the weekly Sober Living letters. Thanks for popping in. Be sure to come back next time so I can keep your head on straight. Sending you buckets of love.